All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Birds TV with Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher, presented, of course, by DraftKings. And you're probably pretty used to seeing our guest for this episode. He's on with us quite often, including our Sunday pregame show. And when you see Greg Cosell, and you can see him just sitting there in his office in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, right? NFL Films. So you know he's already grinded hours of tape. When you see that, you know we're going to get into some tape study with Greg. We actually brought him on to also talk about the NFL divisional playoffs. But I know, Greg, you've been grinding the tape, and so we're going to ask you a little for your early assessment right now on some of the college prospects at quarterback, if that's all right with you.
Sure, I've done two guys.
All right, that's all. That's all we needed. Because the Eagles do pick 6 overall, and they do have an uncertain quarterback situation. Now, I don't know who's going to be there at 6'4", and we know that there's always a run on quarterbacks. But you, in particular, have taken a look at Justin Fields of Ohio State and Zach Wilson of BYU, correct?
I have. I've seen both guys many games, so I'm probably pretty much done with those guys. Fields I actually looked at in 2019 as well.
Oh, good. So let's start with Justin. Obviously, leads that potent Ohio State offense. Tell me what you see of Justin Fields.
I would describe Fields this way. And again, Adam knows, he's seen all the kind of notes that I do. So he knows it's very, very detailed. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and read, the entire thing. Here's what I typed in my transition. I said, at this point, he's a higher level traits prospect with a plus arm and strong movement traits, but there is much work to be done when it comes to throwing with needed timing and recognizing early in the down or before the snap where the ball needs to go based on the coverage. Now, he can drive the ball with velocity. He can throw with pace, but based on his tape, he needs things to be clean and defined to be consistently successful. He left a lot of throws on the field. Again, you never know why that is, why a guy doesn't turn it loose, what he's seeing, what he's not seeing. But keep in mind, he's got movement ability, and that is a big factor now in the NFL. So he can be a factor with his legs, both in the design run game and the second reaction game. And we've seen how effective and important that is in the NFL these days.
Greg, when you talk about the second reaction plays, when you've studied quarterbacks, is that adjusted the way that you look at the quarterback position? Because it's not something we heard a lot about years ago.
No. And I've had to change my thinking a bit because the game has changed. And the reason the game has changed is because of defenses. Defenses now force quarterbacks to have second reaction ability. It's not just because, hey, it's cool to be able to run around.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, as you guys know, we've all been to training camps. We all know this stuff. The game is not taught with the quarterback, hey, here's the ball, let's run around today. Everything is taught in structure, play design, route concepts. Here's the coverage. Hey, here's our zone side of the field. If you get zone, you're working this side. Here's our man side. If we get man, you're working this side. Hey, here's our cover 3 beaters. Here's our cover 4 beaters. Everything is taught within structure. You'd ideally like to play that way. But the nature of defense now in the NFL is such that there's going to be any number of given snaps in a game where the defense wins tactically, and the quarterback has to be able to move. Now, we've seen that some great quarterbacks, the Tom Brady's, they're not movers, but I think for the most part, unless you think a guy is just absolutely so special, and there's not that many of those guys, that a quarterback now, in response to the changing nature of defenses, more pressure, faster players, more nickel, more dime, some teams playing with 7 DBs, that your quarterback at some point in games has to be able to move.
So when you said, Greg, that Fields has a lot of great traits, I believe you said he has remarkable traits.
He has higher level traits, not remarkable.
High level traits. Okay, all right. High level traits.
Higher
level traits, but some of the passing game evolution needs to come along with him. Does that is that similar to what Josh Allen was coming out of college, a guy who had great athleticism, but there were questions about his accuracy and passing?
Yeah, I mean, well, Josh Allen's a bigger man. Josh Allen has a far more powerful arm. Fields is a good thrower, not a great thrower. Allen had really high level traits, but definitely had ball placement issues. Everybody knows that, given what he is now. I'm sure there's a lot of revisionist history. People like to do that. We all know that on social media. Everybody is an expert after the fact. But there's no question that he had those issues. Hey, even Justin Herbert, who played phenomenal football this year, if you're being honest and fair, and it was in my report as well, there were concerns about his ball placement. There were concerns about his sense of timing and anticipation. Adams told me many times when he was at the Senior Bowl, he sat with scouts who echoed the same things that I saw watching the film. They watched the film as well. So it'll you know what it will lead to, Geoff? It will lead to a fascinating discussion. And Adam and I will talk to coaches as we do in scouts as we lead up to the draft. A fascinating discussion about traits versus production and how teams see that going forward in their evaluation of quarterbacks. Because, some scouts and personnel people love production. They say, hey, I know this guy performed at a really, really high level. He did everything he was asked to do. We love that. Other guys say, hey, look at these guys' traits, man. You don't see that with every guy. Yeah, there were some concerns, but we can coach him up because he has great traits. So that's going to be a discussion, as it should be.
Greg, on Zach Wilson, I
Yeah.
have people I trust already tell me he's going to go in the upper half of the first round. I mean, this is quite a rise for this kid. So tell us what you saw on tape.
Yeah, my sense studying Wilson is that he's a desirable combination of structured system efficiency with consistently precise ball placement, and he does have second reaction improvisation with plus athletic ability and field awareness. I think he has much to work with when you look at his traits and his feel, his awareness. I think he presents as a pretty strong prospect. I think his overall skill set would translate really well to a Shanahan, to a McVay, but he has the added dimension of second reaction movement. The way he throws reminded me a little of Jimmy Garoppolo. So I liked Zach Wilson.
That's not a negative, though. Greg, could you explain that? Because
no, it's not a negative.
No, when people hear that, they go, "Wait a minute, what do you mean by that?" Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not a negative at all. He's got very quick feet on his drop. He's got good ball carriage, meaning where he holds the ball. He's got a snap compact delivery with an easy throwing motion. I wouldn't call him a high level velocity thrower, but he makes all the needed throws, certainly within the timing of the BYU passing game. Now, keep one thing in mind. That has a lot of air raid elements to it. There were a lot of open receivers. But again, now you get back to traits. You got to look at the traits. I don't know the kid. You hear reports. I don't worry about those unless it's someone I trust telling me about it. Just like Adam, you're the same way. You don't read something and go, "Oh, that's true." But I think I would say he's far more refined and advanced than Fields. But some will clearly look at Fields and think that he's a higher level traits prospect if you're just looking at traits.
Excellent. All right. Let's get into some of the NFL playoff matchups this weekend, the divisional round. I know you've watched tape on every single team. Before we do that, we'll remind everybody to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code ITB to get all of your sign-up bonuses. That's promo code ITB to get all of your sign-up bonuses on the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, Greg. There's some. I feel like there's two really exciting games and two games this weekend. So we'll start off with one of them that I think is extremely exciting, and that is the Sunday night game, the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. You got Brady versus Brees. It's just a little bit different than we've seen it in the past. How do you see this one unfolding? What is the key here for each team in this game?
Well, that'll be when I'm having my hot tea and cookies. That's Sunday night. That's late. It's a fascinating game because obviously they played twice this year. The last time was week 9. And basically what happened in that game from the standpoint of the Saints defense was they dominated up front and they played man coverage, and the Bucs could not handle either one. The Saints play more two-man coverage than any team in the league, which means 2 deep safeties and man-to-man across the board. They'll do that. That's what they do. They're very good. They have really good players at all 3 levels of their defense. So the key, if we're keeping it relatively simple here, will be protection. Tom Brady's throwing the ball right now better than he has at any point this season. He looks like he's 10 years younger. He's throwing with velocity. He's throwing with ball placement. He looks very good, but he needs to be protected. Arians even spoke about that this week. He said, hey, if we protect Tom, I feel really good about our chances. We've seen Lattimore match up to Evans literally every time they played the last 3 years. I guess Lattimore's been in the league. And Lattimore, for the most part, has gotten the better of it. So Evans needs, in my opinion, to be able to win some routes here. But Antonio Brown is now a bigger factor in their offense. And I tell you who I thought last week against the football team was really a factor, and that was Cameron Brate. Because Cameron Brate is almost like a big wideout. And I think that he might be important in this game.
Greg, you talked about protection. There is one issue. The Bucs lost starting guard Alex Kappa to a broken ankle. Aaron Stinney gets his first NFL start. How problematic could this be for their offensive line in this game?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, again, because we saw in one of the games that, and I think it was Ali Marpet who missed the Week 9 game, Adam, if memory serves
and Haig
correctly.
started. Right. Yeah,
and Haig started, and Haig was exposed, and they had real problems. I mean, 3 or 4 snaps I can just see in my mind right now where Haig was just beaten badly. So that's going to be critical. That's a very good D line. Is Hendrick? You would know this. Is Hendrickson back?
Yeah, he has to just get cleared. He's ready to go. They have to clear him medically, and 13 and a half sacks. Where did Trey Hendrickson come from? We knew about him, but what is in terms of traits? What do you like about him?
He's one of those guys with better traits than people think. Because he's not a true flexible, get low to the ground bender, but he's more than just a speed to power guy. He can clear the edge. So he's got some good traits, but what they do a lot, they're a dime team, and it'll be very interesting what they do, because when they play dime, what they do is they play 3-2-6. They keep linebackers Davis and Anzalone on the field, and they only play with 3 defensive linemen. So it'll be very interesting if that's what they continue to do, because if Hendrickson is healthy, will they go with Hendrickson, Davenport, and Jordan? That's a pretty good group. And often Davis adds in, he becomes the 4th rusher, and they do a lot of stunts. So we'll see. They could play with 4 down linemen too, because they might feel they have an advantage, particularly against Stinney.
Who do you like in the game, Greg? I won't make you pick a score. I won't make you pick a score.
This, you know that. I'm not.
Yeah, but that's why I put you on the spot.
Let's talk football, Jay. Let's not pick winners and losers. Come on.
Hey, that's part of what we do. I actually I like the Bucs. I think they're playing really well. So
John Hanson. I like the Saints, but my problem. And Greg, before we move on to the next game, what has happened to this Bucs secondary, which was terrific in the first half?
Yeah, the Bucs have not had a good defense the last half of the season, basically.
What's happened here?
Their secondary's not been very good. Their corners have not played well. I think what Todd Bowles is going to have to try to do, and again, Drew Brees is a veteran. He's seen everything, but ultimately his game is built on plant the back foot, get it out. So I think you're going to have to at least try to slow down his process, disguise late movement. Now, like I said, Brees has seen everything, but that doesn't mean you don't do things. It's not like you say, okay, he's great, we're not going to do anything. You still have to try and go out and play. So I think they're going to try to slow down his process, make him hold the ball just for that extra beat or two, and hopefully then the pass rush can get there. So I think you'll see a lot of disguise and late movement from the Bucs defense.
Greg, one of the toughest games, in fact, it is the toughest game for me to pick, is Baltimore at Buffalo on Saturday. The nightcap.
Fascinating game.
I know. I'm so pulling for the Bills and Sean McDermott.
I know.
And all those Chad Hall, you might remember him here.
Yeah, sure I do.
Great job. A receiver and receivers coach. They're really well coached, well schemed. But man, Baltimore's playing such great defense. And I know you made a comment and people thought it was interesting. You said, well, actually, tell people what you said about, I don't want to get it wrong. What did you say about Josh Allen in recent weeks?
Well, I think he's the most physically gifted quarterback in the league. He's 6'5", 240. He's got an arm that's absolutely ridiculous. I was fortunate because I know Jordan Palmer well. The year he came out, the night before the quarterbacks worked out on the second floor of the Dome, Jordan Palmer invited me to the workout because he has Sam Darnold as well. Yep. So I spent 2 hours with Josh Allen and Sam Darnold, and I was literally standing next to each guy throwing a ball, and Josh Allen's just different. In fact, he was throwing to Jordan, and after about 10 minutes, Jordan's hands were bloody. He throws the ball.
Wow.
Obviously Jordan's not a receiver, so he's not used to doing
but
that.
But even so.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, he just throws it differently than other people that I've been around, and I've been around a few in my few years doing this. So, but he's the most physically gifted quarterback in the league with his size, his arm talent, and his movement ability. And I keep trying to think, and I know I've been asked this, and I just can't remember a quarterback whose ball placement improved so dramatically from one year to the next.
Or accuracy.
Some of it's technique. His lower body mechanics are clearly better, but not all the time. I mean, he's just a guy that throws sometimes the way he throws. That's kind of the way he throws. But his ball placement and his pace and touch on some of those shorter throws to Cole Beasley, he's improved. It's like he's done a 180. It's really remarkable.
We felt that, Greg, that it reminded us a lot of Carson Wentz's 2017 season, where his mechanics may not have been perfect, but he made a bunch of great throws, and his ball placement and his athleticism, it all just came together in that year. And it was, it's amazing. I want to ask you, because Brian Daboll obviously is going to be a head coaching candidate and may get a job. When you watch their offense, as outside of Josh Allen's improvement and the addition of Stephon Diggs, which might have been the best addition this year in the NFL, what is the hallmark of the Brian Daboll offense?
Well, they like to work the intermediate and vertical levels. Now, obviously, depending on down and distance, obviously if it's 3rd and 6, they really are good with Beasley with option routes and what we call choice routes. They want to get first downs. But if you're talking about the general concepts, they like to work intermediate and vertical. Like they'll run double post crosser, meaning 2 posts from one side and a crosser from the other side. That's a staple concept for them. They run a lot of crossers, particularly when they get man coverage, because you can run away from man coverage. So Daboll is a guy who likes to push it. And he obviously has a quarterback who can do that. So they're an aggressive pass offense. This game will be about pressure. The Ravens pressure more than any team in the league. They're proactive with it. Martindale, their DC, is not a milquetoast coordinator. He's not going to say, "Ooh, Josh Allen's, really talented. We're not going to do it." They're going to go, and they're going to feel comfortable with Peters and Smith on the outside, Humphrey in the slot. We'll see if they play some dime versus 4 wide, but they're going to go. And the Bills are going to have to beat it. And they're going to have to beat it. There'll be Josh Allen second reaction plays, but they're also going to have to beat it from the pocket tactically, picking up the blitz. There'll be plays to be made on the perimeter. Whether they get made, that's why I can't pick scores. I can't tell you whether they'll be made, but they'll be there potentially to be made.
I think I remember reading that Josh Allen was one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz this year. So you've got a blitzing team versus a quarterback who's
faced more blitz than any quarterback in the league, and he's thrown for more yards versus blitz than any quarterback in the league.
Well, you love that matchup.
You got to ask Greg. I got to ask this question. Matchup show on Saturday. If you're listening to us on Saturday, why do I have a feeling you're going to be doing a piece on Josh Allen? Am I correct?
Versus the blitz.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Good
and I did that piece. That would be the Cosell file.
Cosell file. There
Mr.
it is.
Caplan. That would be the Cosell file.
What time? Hey, what time is your show?
Oh, God. It's bad times, but it's one of those press your blue button on your remote and say NFL matchup, and it'll pop right up.
Good. Okay.
That's right. ESPN's NFL matchup show. Let's fly through these last 2 games. We'll through the 3 o'clock, I think, Sunday game. The Browns, the upstart Browns against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Browns are going to run the ball. We know that. But is their
yes
defense...
and no.
No?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, they're not going to totally step out of who they are. But the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've been a lot more aggressive throwing it. Now, they still throw it out of who they are. It's not like, they still throw with play action boot. And I personally believe, and we discussed that, Adam, this morning, you, myself, and John Hansen, the goal is not to keep Mahomes off the field. The goal is to score touchdowns. Mahomes, amazingly enough, is still going to get on the field. So you do have to score touchdowns. In an average NFL game, an offense gets 12 possessions. So even if you hold them to 10, what happens if they score 5 touchdowns? That would be 35 points. So that means the Browns have to score. So I think they'll be aggressive within what they do. And Adam, I know you know Stefanski. I don't know if you've talked to him, but that's my sense. I think they'll be aggressive within what they do.
They've done this thing, and through analytics, they by the end of the game, if the game's even remotely close, it'll look like they're running the ball a lot. But in the first quarter and a half, they'll be running it more than they'll be throwing it more than you think. That's the way Bill Walsh believed it. Bill Belichick believes it. You should always come out.
Or Turner believed it with those years with the Cowboys when they won Super Bowls.
Right. And look, Brian Schottenheimer unfortunately was fired, but I'll tell you what, check their first half pass run ratio during the first half of games through week 9. You'd be stunned at how much they threw the football in the first half.
Yeah, no, I think they have to be aggressive. It's so hard to go 12, 13 play drives, number one. History clearly shows that explosive plays come out of the pass game far more than the run game. I don't think that they're going to go into this game thinking it's going to be a 17-13 game. Their defense is just not good enough for it to be that way. They're going to have to score touchdowns, and you're not going to score touchdowns without throwing the football.
Speaking of throwing the football, I want to get one question more in on the Kansas City, because Mike Kafka is heavily involved in their passing game, and he's going to be a head coaching candidate. We know the Eagles want to talk to him. Is there something, Greg, you've watched this offense evolve over the years, but is there something that you feel that Kafka or the passing offense, look, they've got such explosive weapons.
And I have no idea what Kafka's role is, so I can't answer that. I mean,
well, just the passing game. I want to ask you about the passing game concepts, just in general. What do you see that might be different or has evolved throughout the years for them?
Well, they're another team that has vertical concepts. Now, Andy has certain concepts that he runs no matter whether he has speed or not. The flood concept, which is a 3-level stretch concept. Everybody runs that now. It's a real staple of the Chiefs' passing game. But now that they have more speed, they've added a lot of concepts over the last couple of years that they're vertical, because they make you defend the entire field. Now, they're really good, too, at making you defend both vertically and horizontally. And that's why a Kelsey is such a big factor, because they create so much space for him. And again, he's a great player. I'm not saying anybody could do what Kelsey does, but their concepts create so much space because they really stretch defenses vertically and expand them horizontally. And that creates a lot of space in the middle of the field. So they're a very difficult team to defend and to play against. But again, and Mike Kafka is obviously part of that. I don't know what his role is. To me, this strikes me as pretty Andy Reid-ish.
And one thing before we get out of here, which is interesting, Sammy Watkins will not play with his calf injury.
I saw that. He's out, ruled out.
Nicole Hardman, Greg, we don't talk about him a lot. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, and he's not a volume target in their offense, but again, he's a vertical guy. And, that's the key thing. And they do a lot of jet sweeps. I like the Rams in that regard. That also expands you horizontally, because, it's easy to say, leave alone the jet sweep guy. But if he gets the ball and he outflanks your defense immediately, all of a sudden he gains 15 yards. This week, and I actually do radio in San Francisco, and Tom Tolbert's one of the guys I talked to, former NBA player.
Yeah.
And, we started talking about the fact that the Chiefs are like the old Warriors from a few years back, when they could be down by 10 and all of a sudden they hit 6 threes.
The onslaught. I call it the onslaught. Yep.
Yeah. And they're up by 10 and you go, how'd that happen? And the Chiefs are kind of like that. Maybe they're not playing great for a couple of series. Then all of a sudden they go 2 series and there's a 60-yard touchdown a hill. And then there's another big play and then a touchdown, and you go, and they're up and you go, wait, seemed like 2 minutes ago they were down. That's the way they are.
Yep.
And the Browns do not have a true post safety, a guy with speed and range.
Free safety, right?
Yeah, that was Run TMC. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullen.
Chris Mullen, my favorite player. I grew up 5 minutes from St. John's University. Had season tickets from when I was 6 years old.
Wow. Really?
Sat 3 rows behind Louis Carnesecca.
Oh my God! How about the sweater? Oh,
the sweaters,
He was the best. All right, we got like 1 minute left to run through Rams at Packers. It's going to be cold. The starting quarterback for the Rams has a thumb injury. It doesn't seem to bode well. A lot of pressure here, or emphasis, Greg, on Brandon Staley's defense and what he can do to stop that Packer offense. What do you think?
And as there should be. They're really good on D. They play a ton of split safety. Ramsey will match up to Adams at times, but not all through the game. There'll be specific situations and formations. So we won't get into all that because people can't see that, but it won't be all game. I'll be fascinated to see how the Rams D does against this offense, because obviously Rodgers is another guy that's seen everything, but it's still a very tough defense to play against. On the other side, I think you got to look at Cam Akers as ideally, he'll be a big factor. Whether it's a big positive factor, we don't know. But I think they're going to line up with 2 tight ends a lot. I really do, because Mike Pettin likes to play with 5 DBs. And I think they're going to see, is he going to play with 5 DBs in which they'll feel they can run the ball, or will he go base, which he doesn't really like to do. So I use kind of the New England game in the matchup show as a template, because they ran out of 12 personnel. Akers had 29 carries, 27 came out of 12 personnel. And the Patriots are another team that they play big nickel. They play with 5 DBs, and they had a lot of success running the ball against New England.
Very quick. We'll end it with this. The Rams can beat the Packers if fill in the blank.
They score more points.
No, that's not how it works. No, I mean, they're seen as the largest underdog, you know?
Yeah, well, I think two things. They're going to have to be able to run the ball with efficiency. Akers is not explosive like a Dalvin Cook, but they're going to need to run the ball with efficiency so they can keep the Packers in certain predictable looks. And I think, obviously, their defense is going to have to be a factor. They're not going to shut out Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think the Rams can win 35-32. I think this would have to be a 23-20 kind of game.
All right. You can hear more from Greg Cosell on this weekend's matchups on the NFL Matchup Show on ESPN. Once again, Greg, always a pleasure to have you on. I know you'll be on with us sometime down the road. We'll talk about the draft and some prospects. All right.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. You've been watching Inside the Birds TV. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.